Good evening, everyone. You are listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Tonight, I am pleased to announce the return of my good friend, Clinton Foundation whistleblower Nate Cain, an American patriot, brave man. We know what often happens to people who go up against Bill and Hillary. This man is protected by the full armor of God. That's my own personal opinion. I think you're going to agree with me. We've got a lot to talk about tonight, you guys. Lots of interesting, exciting developments. We're going to talk also about what's happening right now in the news, specifically with the FISA court. I think you're really going to enjoy it. We'll be right back after a quick word from my sponsor with Nate and the story. You know, more and more companies are struggling right now, and unfortunately, a casualty of that might be your 401k. We've got American workers finding their retirement money is being frozen and their plans just being canceled altogether. Finding your pension suddenly terminated isn't a great place to be, but it does give you a few options. You can withdraw your funds and get taxed a lot. If your workplace has gone out of business, but you have a new job, you can roll it over to the new employer, but you'll have all of the same risks. Or you can put your money into your own personal IRA account, where it's your right to choose your own investment. With stock markets, property, and bonds looking rocky right now, precious metals, gold and silver might be the way to go. Noble Gold are experts on precious metal IRAs. They've kept thousands of families safe when their futures were pulled from under them. So give them a call at 877-646-5347 or hit the link below to get the free investment guide. Check out noblegoldinvestments.com today and tell them that Red Pill 78 sent you. The information's free, and when you support Noble Gold, you support my channel. All right, guys, before we get into the story with Nate and our interview, I just want to say hello to everyone who's here. Lots of my mods are here. I see that my mom is here, Crystal Lynn, Jojo. We saw Karma Anon, Wheezy Girl, and also several new members to the Red Pill 78 channel. You guys, I know a lot of people have been really worried about YouTube just deleting channels. Well, they have just given me the ability to have members on my channel. So I set these up last night because I figured, that must mean that I'm at least a little bit safe in terms of YouTube keeping my channel around. You can choose to support my channel monetarily. If you do, there are some special perks that you get with it. If you're a Red Pill 78 supporter, then that's $1.99 a month. As a promoter, it's $4.99 a month. As a prescriber, it's $9.99 a month. As a distributor, it's $24.99 a month. And as a producer, it's $49.99 a month. Now, when you subscribe to any of these levels, you get little perks like behind the scenes pictures and status updates. You get previews of my videos, what's going to be going on today. And then there is also, for the two top membership levels, you get an exclusive members only live stream once a month. And then there's also the opportunity to have me create a custom video. And one of my members, Michael Kenny, already actually gave me some ideas, and he didn't even know that that was one of the perks. So if you guys do want to support my channel, then this is an option, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of it. Now, Methods is here too. Hey, Methods, what's up, buddy? So thank you, everybody, for coming here tonight. This is going to be a great show. If I could please ask you to do me a favor, White Hat, love you there, brother. Joe H., thank you for joining. If I could ask everyone to please like and share this video, make sure that we get this out. We've got to break through the algorithm because I swear, guys, we are going to have some information tonight that is going to be new and exclusive. All right, so without further ado, please join me in welcoming my friend, Clinton Foundation whistleblower, none other than Nate Cain. Nate, how are you, my friend?
Hey, how's it going?
Excellent.
Doing all right. Getting ready for Christmas?
Yeah, it is. It's that time of the year again. You know, I mean, do you have anything in particular planned, or are you just going to be taking it easy with the fam, going anywhere?
Yeah, I actually have some plans, but I'm not going to tell what those are over the air.
You don't have to. That's fine.
Don't want to give anybody any ideas.
No problem. I just need to, I forgot to mention something. Someone asked me if this is going to be any different than my Patreon. I just want to let anybody know who's already a patron that I will be publishing the perks from the YouTube perks also on Patreon. So if you're already a patron, then there's no need to switch over to YouTube, but you will see those. I wasn't producing anything specifically for any platform, but I decided that I was going to go ahead and give it a shot. So thank you, everybody who's also already donated. We've got some super chats from Wheezy Girl. Thank you for that, Wheezy Girl. Michael Kenny says, proud to be the first member. He is the first member. Thank you for that. Crystal Lynn, thank you for joining. Karma Anon, thank you for joining. And Joe H as well. Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda's here. Gaga Goo Goo. Merry Christmas to you, your mom, and your bathroom. That's right. The bathroom's still going on. Oh, it is what it is, guys. And it'll happen on God's time. When as soon as he wants me to be able to take a shower, then I can go ahead and expect it to be ready. Well, Nate, last time you were here, we were not able to discuss the situation regarding your whistleblowing. And it's my understanding that tonight you are going to be able to kind of break this down with the audience and tell people what happened to a certain degree.
Yeah. So, of course, right after it happened and everything, there was a lot going on. I was concerned about, legal issues and, what I can and cannot say, the good old government saying I can neither confirm nor deny. Right. That's ingrained in us, from very early on. But I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know, what was going on in terms of like how I was being targeted. I still don't know a lot of those answers. I think the difference is now it's been a year, and a lot of people have been very patient, and there's still certain things that I can't share. Maybe at some point I can, but specifically about the very specific details about the information that I handed over, I can speak generally, to some of those things. But there's a lot happening right now. There's been so much that has happened just on the last month, and in regards to what I like to refer to as Spygate. I think Dan Bongino, coined the term, but it really, there has been this massive spy operation that has gone on, against our president, and then this impeachment. And one of the things that kind of brought me out from the shadows was something happened that really kind of pissed me off. And excuse my language, but you come to a point where you just kind of you're tired of it, you're done, and you're not going to sit quietly anymore. And so one of the things that bothered me was this so-called whistleblower. And so that you don't lose monetization, I won't say his name.
Please, thank you.
but we all know who we're talking about, okay? Yeah. And this anonymous guy, and and hearing all this praise about this whistleblower and how he's such a, they treat this guy like he deserves a medal. And and as far as I'm concerned, all he did was just file a complaint on some hearsay, that he heard, and then didn't even wasn't even ballsy enough to put his name out there. And so I've got a problem with that. I don't have a problem with somebody being a whistleblower. I really don't have a problem with that guy, but I got a problem with Adam Schiff and the Democrats in Congress and the way that they they have this double standard. I come out and blow the whistle, and my name gets exposed. My life is a living hell for a year. And and not a single one of them speaks up for me. Mm-hmm. Not a single one of them. The only person who spoke out for me that I'm aware of was Chairman Grassley. Senator, if you're listening to this, I don't know if you are, but I just want to thank you for what you did. The whistleblower protection is very important. It is critical. And I would say in the intelligence community, especially, there's a super critical need for whistleblower protection, because it is the only way there can be accountability for, for these matters where everything's cloaked behind, the secrecy of classification. Okay. It's not like, it's not like an EEO complaint or something like that. It's not like even you saw some fraud going on, or something like that. These are matters that deal with classified things, and so there is a great fear within the intelligence community of coming forward about things that you see, because that if you do things the wrong way, if you don't handle things correctly, if you make a mistake, and you're very likely going to have your clearance stripped. You're going to lose your job. You're going to. It's possible that the feds will come after you, drag you through court, bankrupt you, and or worse, put you in jail. So there is a serious fear. Okay, and so a lot of people. Most, I would say 90% of everybody out there, my Twitter fans and people, out there that have followed me, have been very supportive. And I want to tell you guys, this has been a hard road. It has definitely not been an easy road, but God has gotten me through it. Without prayer, without the prayers from all of you and the support and the encouragement, there's no way that I think I could have survived this year without, ending up in a serious depression or something like that. I just, it has been a tough year, but I have been able to make it through. My family has surprisingly, survived this as well, even though it's been tough for them. We've gone through a lot of just scrutiny in ways that you just can't believe, in terms of just our lives. I got a letter from Facebook. I want to say it was about a week after the anniversary of it was a week before the anniversary of the raid on my home. And in it says, it basically says that they are informing me that my Facebook account, that the law enforcement had requested access to my Facebook account, and that they had complied in accordance with the law, and that they had basically an order not to reveal that my account had been being snooped on by the FBI, and until a certain date had passed. And so that I'm assuming that it was probably a year had gone by. So that means a couple of weeks before they raided my home, they were surveilling me, and and Facebook's the only one that sent me a letter like that. But I could assume, I can assume that probably my Gmail account, my Google, my phone. I remember around that time I was hearing a lot of clicks and stuff like that on the phone. Anytime I was talking to somebody, and you don't know what it's like to have that kind of surveillance going on in your life. It makes you paranoid. Everywhere you go, you feel like you're being watched. You're afraid to say things or even crack jokes that might be misinterpreted the wrong way. You feel it must be what people felt like in Soviet Russia, is the only way I can describe it, and what people feel like in China today. In places like China, where it's illegal to operate a house church, and people get arrested and put in prison for it. They have to worry about surveillance like that. And so I had put out a tweet, kind of a few weeks after the whole raid thing. I quickly deleted it because I realized, I probably should just keep my mouth shut. but no sooner did I put it up than Fox News, went out and posted it out there for the whole world. But basically I had said, it feels like it's 1984. What do we live in, a police state? Mm-hmm. And, and the truth is, I do worry that we're living in a police state. I think the things that have come out in Horowitz's report are frightening. The abuses of power, the abuses of the state's surveillance system on American citizen, Carter Page, who did nothing but serve his country honorably and actually do his duty for his country, working with the CIA. And how is he rewarded? The FBI files a bogus FISA warrant on him, and a lawyer from the FBI changes a letter basically confirming that he was a CIA asset, and to saying that he's not, so that they could get this warrant. I mean, that kind of stuff going on should horrify every single American.
I completely agree. Nate, before we continue, that act by Kevin Kleinsmith is clearly not something that a federal official should be doing. That's an integrity issue. But Is that in and of itself a legal issue? Did he commit a crime by falsifying that evidence?
He is going. I no doubt in my mind, he is likely going to be prosecuted, and if not, it will only be because he turns evidence on somebody that ordered him to do it. And I'm not saying that that's what happened, but we'll see what this leads to, because there's no doubt in my mind that it's already been referred for prosecution. I believe the interview that there was an interview that was given by Bill Barr to NBC. Anybody who hasn't seen that interview needs to see it. It is a powerful interview, and I know that there were 5 individuals that were involved in that whole thing. Okay.
Yes.
And that's what it was. I watched the testimony. Okay,
Horowitz said it.
Was Horowitz's testimony. There were 5 individuals who were involved in that, and Horowitz said himself to the committee that those people had been referred, to the Justice Department.
And this is something I specifically wanted to bring up with you, because I made that point in my video after I caught that in the testimony, and someone on my channel had said, you're misleading people. He was talking about this being taken up by the FISA court, and I said, no, the FISA court's just where they get the FISA warrants. The issue of putting this before a court would have been through criminal referrals, which would have been sent over by the IG, and then they would have been prosecuted in the DOJ. That's correct, right?
Right. Yeah. My understanding is, from everything that I've heard, was that there were no criminal referrals regarding the predicate to open up the investigation. Mm-hmm. And that's because he didn't have access to any evidence that led him to believe that there was a wrong predicate in that. However, as Bill Barr said, he didn't have all the information. He's limited in his scope of who he can interview as people who are employees of the Department of Justice, and anybody outside of the Department of Justice and their subdivisions. Basically, he can't compel them to testify. Mm-hmm. And he even says that in his report. A lot of people love to just quote the headlines, mm-hmm. and don't take the time to actually sit down and read these 400-page reports. And I understand that. Look, we all got lives to do, and we all have things to do, and most people don't have time for it. Of course, for me, because of the circumstances with my situation, I was very interested in this, and so I did read through most of it. I haven't finished getting through all of it, but I got through enough of it to see that there were, in fact, some referrals made, however, not necessarily related to the predicate. There was also, there was a lot of wrongdoing here. And I'm not talking about just procedural things. There were criminal things that occurred. And so this report that we saw, may only be part of it. There might be another piece of this report that isn't public.
Really?
Yes, it's very possible. Anything that may have led to a criminal investigation may have been passed off. And remember, a lot of people don't realize, the IG, yes, the IG is independent, right? But he also does fall under, under the DOJ AG. Mm-hmm. Okay. And if there's something that he found that is criminal in nature, and him revealing that could actually impact an ongoing investigation,
right?
There's no way he's talking about that. Okay. And I think that it's possible that there may be more things that we don't even have a clue about that may have been discovered by him. And certainly we know there are things, that John Durham has found. Both John Durham and Barr came out with statements. That should be very telling, because those two men have said nothing Okay.
Durham,
Said,
I don't think he's ever been quoted. I've never seen a quote from him ever.
Me neither.
No. Yeah, so as soon as their report came out, and I saw that there were immediately quotes from Durham and Barr, I knew that we were looking at a much smaller piece of a larger puzzle.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And there's another character who we haven't heard anything from for a while now, but who plays a very important role, especially in my story, that I think we should be very watchful of. And we'll probably, I'm guessing that we're going to be seeing some movement from this other individual, and that is John Huber. Everybody thinks that John Huber, basically he's kind of just dropped off the face of the planet. That guy has been, completely quiet, not said anything about anything having to do with Hillary Clinton. But we know a while back you had those two private investigators, and guys don't spend that kind of level of time and effort and money to do that kind of investigation unless they're pretty dang sure they're going to get paid.
Oh yeah, okay? Most definitely.
And so these basically are like accountant bounty hunters that were going after the Clinton Foundation, and they went and they testified. If you guys were, you might not remember, but on the day that those guys testified, John Huber was also scheduled to testify, but he did not show up.
Yes.
In fact, he refused to show up. Basically against the wishes of Congress. And I believe the reason for that was because he had ongoing investigations and things that he knew he couldn't talk about.
I thought the same thing.
So there's a couple of things that I want to share with you guys tonight, some new information. And, this is kind of relevant, I think, because a lot of people don't understand the process of investigations. Okay. A true investigation, it takes a long time. And I'm certainly not an FBI agent, or never was, but working at the Bureau, I did get at least some exposure to a lot of their documents, a lot of the way that cases are ran. And, and they have very different divisions that it's broken up. They don't manage it like a typical organization. They use what's called a starfish pattern organization, where you have all of these arms and these branches, and they are all independent. And the reason why they're independent is because you don't want influence and bias and things like that affecting different parts of the case. They also don't want leaks getting out, and so they keep it very segmented, very compartmentalized. So, one of the things that I found when I was going through these documents, these are the documents that I handed over to the IG, was that there were various departments assigned to investigating these matters. Okay, and they were. I won't get into the details of them. Okay, but there were various departments. There were case numbers, and I shared on. I had a interview with God's guy a couple of days. About a week ago. And, in there, I kind of shared some additional information. And so if you guys haven't seen that, you should go check it out. But basically there was a lot of different evidence that I originally looked at that seemed to me like there was activity going on. Okay.
You mean ongoing cases?
Right. So somebody might ask me, well, then why did you feel like you needed to blow the whistle? Well, here's why. Because those dates of those cases were quite old. Okay. People had information quite some time ago, and nothing happened.
You mean prior to the Uranium One deal?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to share with you guys some information here. I shared this on a podcast I did with Frank and Beans, Dark to Light. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to read from this document. This is a document right here. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see it.
It's a little blurry.
This was submitted to Horowitz. This is the document that was provided with the printout of all of the documents that were handed over. Okay. And it basically is from my lawyer to Inspector General Horowitz. And it refers to the ICWPA, okay, which is the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act. I've been told by my lawyer that I am the first person ever in the history of its existence, the ICWPA, to ever come forward to Horowitz with the ICWPA. Now, I want you guys to think about that. Okay, I'm not saying that there aren't other whistleblowers under the WPA. The WPA only is useful for government employees. The ICWPA is the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act. It allows contractors, in addition to federal employees, to blow the whistle. Most of the time, they might go through the ICIG, okay, Michael Atkinson. In my case, because I was working for the FBI, I went through the DOJ IG, and there's some other reasons for that, and I'll get into that in a minute. But this is something I want everybody to think about. Okay, the ICWPA, I'm the first person ever to come forward with a whistleblower complaint under the ICWPA to the DOJ IG. What does that tell you about the fear level that people have in the intelligence community to keep their mouths shut?
I think that also it's quite often, it seems that way anyways, that contract employees are used a lot of times because of their kind of the removed nature of their employment there, because sure, you know, they are not so directly involved, and maybe they are more likely to go ahead and look the other way because they want to keep their jobs.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, here's the deal, right? You know, you burn if you cost a company their contract, okay, because you blow the whistle, right? You might get blackballed. You might not ever find work again, you know, in that industry or with that particular agency. So there's a real legitimate fear. Okay, there is a real problem, I think, in the intelligence community in particular. The intelligence community, it actually includes several different agencies, most of which I don't even know. Okay, but it includes, you know, NSA, FBI, CIA, that, you know, the three big, you know, 3-letter alphabet agencies, and then it also includes a whole bunch of other intelligence, you know, community agencies as well. And so there's a lot of information that is out there. And think about this: pretty much every other agency that is not an intelligence community agency, you can file a FOIA request, and there's very little that they can do to block that information from being released to the public. Okay. But in the intelligence community, they can very easily hide behind, oh, well, that's classified. And then you throw on top of that, you add on top of that another layer when you're dealing with the FBI, because not only do they have classification caveats, okay, in the case of the documents that I handed over, they were secret, no foreign. Okay, so they also were, you know, they had these what they call caveats, but then they also had another caveat called LOE, okay, or sorry, LEO, law enforcement only. Okay, so basically, things that are related to cases and stuff like that, they're able to block because they can say, oh, this could impact a case, this could impact an ongoing investigation, so we're not going to release it. And there is some truth to that, and I understand that. And that is, and by the way, that is why a lot of people were, why don't you go to the press with your information? Why don't you go and you know, share this stuff? For one thing, number one, all right, it's illegal. And I'm not going to, I don't care, you know, I am not going to risk my freedom, okay, for the sake of, you know, satisfying my ego or somebody else's curiosity, okay? So I did my best to try to stay within the letter of the law. Do I wish things, you know, would have been settled by now? Absolutely. Am I frustrated that this is taking forever for there to be justice and for us to to know that an investigation, you know, has been done and concluded? Absolutely, I'm frustrated. You know, I gave up a lot in order for, you know, to bring that information to, you know, to the HIPSI and the CISI and the IG. Okay. So I am very concerned that these things are not done and that they haven't been concluded. I'm concerned that I may have destroyed my career, you know, in the intelligence community to do what I thought was the right thing. And what do I have to show for it? Nothing. What do I have to show for it is, less pay, with a job that's further away from home than I've ever had, and and the fear constantly over my head that someday, if they may decide to indict me. Okay, that's a real legitimate fear that exists there. The only thing that keeps that from getting to me is that I know that ultimately I did what I did because I believed it was what God wanted me to do. And I have that to stand by. And so if they ever come down on me, then hey, I can say, you know what, God, I did what you wanted me to do. So be it.
Absolutely.
I'm not afraid of what man can do to me ultimately. At the end of the day, when I literally the end of the day, at the end of my days, I know I'm going to stand before God and I'm going to be accountable for everything that I've done. And and I'm not this righteous person that a lot of people out there probably think that I am. I am a sinful person just like everybody else out there. I make mistakes. I do a lot of things that I regret. I've had my own struggles in the past, and I'm not going to I don't want my image being lifted up on high as like some great hero or whatever, but I do believe that God was with me in this thing, and I believe that He's still with me now. And there's just too many interesting things. I really, if you haven't listened to the interview um, with God's guy, you should, because I talk about some of the miraculous things that happened along the way, including an incident involving my lawyer, and where God spoke to me 10 years before I met him, telling me to go to Sakaris. And I didn't realize it until actually we were sitting in a car, ready to go have a meeting with a defense attorney to get some counsel. And I asked him if we could pray together, and we prayed. And at the end of that prayer, immediately that came back to me. And I wasn't the only one to witness that. My wife was there. We talked about it. We went looking on the map for a place called Sakaris because that's what I thought it was a place. And we never found a place. And we found a place. She thought maybe I had misheard. And she's like, well, maybe you misheard. Maybe God said go to Socorros, which is Spanish for help. So we looked around. We found this place in New Mexico. We didn't, find anything. I just kind of put it on a shelf, and that's what I do. If I'm praying and I hear something, I put it on a shelf and I forget about it. And then later, if it's meant to be, it'll come back and I'll remember it. And what happened was, the reason why that was important is because at that moment, man, I was scared. I did not know. I was afraid for my own life. I was afraid for the lives of my children and my wife. I thought if I got found out, that bad people might come after me and try to harm me. Honestly, the FBI was the least of my worries at that moment. But I had when that occurred, I had this immediate like wake up where I just all of a sudden realized, wow, God planned this all along. This was God was with me, and I didn't need to fear anything anymore. And after that, I stopped fearing. So I didn't mean to get off on a tangent there, but basically the point is that we all have to be listening. Okay, we all have to be listening to our conscience. Praying, seeking God for help in our daily lives. And that I hate the saying because it's so overused, but that saying, if you see something, say something. If we did that, if American people did that, things like 9/11 might not have happened.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's clear. I think people too often look the other way. I mean, the fact that you were put in a position to be able to blow the whistle on what it was that you did, I mean, that's proof of it right there, because obviously these things were ongoing. They existed. People decided to look the other way rather than take the necessary action.
That's true. That's true. And I don't blame them. I'll be honest with you. Like going back to what I was saying about the intelligence community, anybody who goes and blows the whistles on something like that, you got a major problem, and you're taking a huge risk. I've worked for the government, the federal government, since 97, because that's when I went into the Army. And then after I got out of the Army, I worked for DISA, and then I worked for the Navy. I worked for Mar4 Cyber. I was detached to NSA, and then I went to the FBI, and now I'm back working with the Navy. So, but the thing is that, you know, when you see these types of things, and you've worked for the government for that long, you're bound to see people get their lives destroyed for blowing the whistle. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it more times than I care, you know, to mention. So I kind of knew what I was getting into. I knew it was a risk. I knew I'd likely get raided. And, you know, I knew that there was that chance. And, but, you know, I still had to do it. You know, I wasn't going to be able to, you know, to live with myself knowing that I just allowed, you know, nothing to happen. And really what was the catalyst for me, because I saw this information actually, like a while back. Okay. I saw it like back in 2016.
Oh, wow. So you sat on it for a little bit.
Oh, heck yeah, man. I sat on this for a long time. I wasn't about to go, you know, blowing the whistle, because remember when I saw it, like I said, there was case numbers assigned to it. There was, you know, it looked like somebody was doing something. So I'm like, well, okay, you know, no problem.
Why put your nose in there?
Right. What led me originally to even look, because honestly, I've had a clearance, you know, for since 96. I've had my TS clearance, and so I've had access to a lot of things, and never in my entire career have I ever gone snooping around looking for things, you know, that were outside of the what we call need to know. Okay, if I didn't have a need to go, no, I wasn't looking there. Okay, and that's pretty standard for most people, I think, who work for the government, because it's ingrained in us, and we don't want to get ourselves in trouble and you know, risk our career. But in this case, I had overheard something in the office. I had overheard a discussion between a couple of people that indicated that there was a fear amongst some people high up in the FBI to prosecute some things that they saw, you know, that were involving Hillary Clinton and others. I remember hearing, you know, them saying, and others in Congress, that this was huge. They were throwing around words like treason. They were throwing around statements about how this could bring the government down, and that they didn't know what to do. And that was a huge warning sign to me. Okay, so when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to see what the heck they're talking about. And so I went and I looked, and I started digging, and I found a trove of information. Okay, and it was pretty disturbing what I saw. And it basically supplied the entire money trail of all kinds of criminal activity going on, you know, surrounding, you know, the Clintons and others, and particularly the Clinton Foundation. And yes, Uranium One was a part of that, but there were other things that were a part of that as well. You know, there was money that was going all over the place, and to various nefarious things, and money coming in from, you know, countries that you wouldn't want to see money coming into to an American organization from some of these countries. And I'm not going to name them, because it's probably classified, but it was very disturbing. So I had to do something. So, but I sat on it, man. I'm like, you know what? Okay, look, it looks like they're doing something. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. I'm just going to ignore it for right now. But what triggered me to decide I had to go blow the whistle was when we're sitting in the office, and I'll never forget, because they always had CNN or MSNBC, go figure, at the FBI. You know, that was always what was on. You know, never Fox, it's always MSNBC or CNN. But they had those on these TVs up in there, and one you know one day they show Comey, and he's standing before, you know, the cameras at the FBI. And, you know, and I didn't work at FBI headquarters. I worked at a off-site location. It's not a clandestine location, but it's one that's not well known. And so I'm not going to mention where that is. But it is in Washington, D.C. And I was working at this other site where they do cybersecurity. And so I'm watching this on the news, and I'm seeing that, you know, here over at the J. Edgar Hoover building, you know, Comey's standing out in front, and he's holding a press conference. And he starts to, and this man, he must have loved talking to the press, because it seemed like he was either always talking to him or leaking to him, one or the other. So, but he goes out there and he exonerates Hillary Clinton. You know, he basically says, no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute this one, over this. And this was over the email, server and those emails. And I'm just like thinking to myself, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I've seen people get prosecuted for mishandling classified information. I had seen people in my own department get walked out, okay? And basically have their clearance stripped and have, their job get fired, and, who knows, maybe even prosecuted.
And just to be clear, for acts of carelessness or for acts of wanton disregard for the procedures?
For both.
Okay. All right. Well,
for both.
Yes.
And I've seen, I just, like, I want to say maybe a month before, I had seen somebody in my own team get walked out. And as far as I know, they didn't do anything wrong, except they didn't follow procedures exactly the way they were supposed to be followed for some pen testing. And this guy had his career ruined. So when I see that, and then I see him go out and say, oh, she had a server in her home.
In her bathroom.
And it had classified information on it. Now, that's not unusual. There are stuff called spillages. It happens. But there's very strict procedures on how to deal with that, okay, including sanitizing the server that the information was on. So that's one thing. But she had top secret, special compartmentalized or special access program information. Let me explain something to you, though, out there who don't understand what that means.
Please, this is good.
Special access programs, okay, are a caveat beyond top secret, meaning it's top secret, okay? Top secret information resides on a system called JWICS, okay? That system is very secure, and you cannot get to, first of all, just because you have access to that system doesn't mean you have access to a SAP, okay, or a special access program, okay? That's where SCI comes in, special compartmentalized information. A SAP program, you have to be read onto, okay? So I've been on a couple of SAP programs where I was read onto. And then you have to be read off of it when you leave that organization, okay? And every file that is on a SAP program is in a SCIF, okay? So it's not like it's on some server just sitting out there. You're never going to have a spillage of a SAP program, okay, onto a unclassified server. At most, you might accidentally have a SAP spillage onto the regular, what they call Genser, secret system. Okay, like we do. There are some, methods, and I can't get into it, but there are some methods of being able to transfer a file down or up. Okay, so you might have an accidental spillage, but to go from first off, okay, you got top secret, and above that, you've got a special access program. So first off, for it to go from special access program into the secret realm, the top secret realm, then to go from top secret down to the secret realm, then to go from secret down to the unclass realm, no freaking way.
That's intentional.
It's intentional. It had to have been carried out or scanned back in, printed out, maybe scanned back in. So there's no way. All right. So somebody should have been prosecuted for that alone. All right. But on top of it, why did she have that server? Well, we know why. Because she didn't want any chance of a FOIA request being put out on her. Do you guys understand what FOIA is? It's the Freedom of Information Act. That is the only way to hold our government accountable, because you don't know what's going on, but as a citizen, you have a right to file a Freedom of Information Act, and provided that information is not, classified or is not involved in a ongoing investigation or something of that nature, they have to release it to you. Okay.
I have an interesting question for you on FOIAs, Nate.
Yeah.
Because there's a new theory that's just been developed. The intentional misspelling of powerful people's names with the explicit intention of getting around FOIA. Recently, our favorite Anon had referred to James Comey as corny. And in the IG report, Comey's name never shows up. However, his name is spelled as Corny every single time that they mention James Comey in the report. Now, some diligent Anons went and did some research themselves, and they found other very close intentional misspellings of other powerful people's names. People like Nancy Pelosi exchanging a capital I for the lowercase l, something like that. But I was wondering if you had in the course of your work, if you had ever seen anything like that, or if you had ever been clued into something like that existing.
I've seen misspellings, but to be honest with you, I have never even thought about that. And now that you mention it,
it's a good idea.
That would be a great way to keep things from being found in FOIA.
Yes.
So that brings up a good point. So if you are filing a FOIA request, you might want to try multiple variations of the person's name. I never thought about that, but that's actually, it makes sense. One thing also too to keep in mind, FOIA does not apply to Congress. You can't do a FOIA request against Congress. FOIA only affects the executive branch. So think about that, okay? Congress passes laws. Congress are the ones who pass the law for FOIA, but they made sure that nobody could do a FOIA on them. Now, how crooked is that?
Well, it's not too surprising. I mean, considering very recently when Adam Schiff lied before Congress and read that script that he had created that was meant to be a representation of the president's phone call with Zelensky. That's a crime, but it's not a crime because he committed it while he was in session. The same with congressmen, how they have the ability to act on insider information that they receive during the course of their business on committees. They can take information that they get, they can go use that to trade, make millions of dollars, and we know that congressmen and women, they come in relatively meager wages, pretty middle class, and then they leave and they're multimillionaires.
I'll tell you, in my opinion, Congress is a cesspool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It is so full of corruption. They made sure that we could only have 2 terms, okay, for a president.
Mm-hmm.
But notice they didn't put no term limits on themselves. All right? They made sure that we could FOIA the executive branch, but they made sure also that they wouldn't be FOIA'd. All right? I tell you, as much as I hate the idea of a constitutional convention, the only way that I see to put some actual to fix some of these corruption issues within Congress would be to hold a constitutional convention. And basically that would be the American people deciding on some changes in regards to how Congress is ran. It is a real problem. And like we are seeing right now, look at the people who were brought to testify in the impeachment hearing. Okay, every single one of them, not only were they partisans, but they were all involved in the Burisma scandal
mm-hmm.
Over in the Ukraine.
Yep.
Okay, every single one of them was involved in either put the ambassador, she put out an order basically saying don't prosecute these people. Some of those were the Podestas.
Yeah.
Some of them was George Soros's group. What the heck, man?
And
it's like
she perjured herself when she went before Congress. Yeah,
she sure did. So you look at that. You look at who are the main people that have been attacking Trump. Okay, you've got the Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Biden, of course, is involved. Has criminal activity of his own and with his son. You have the Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi's, son,
mm-hmm.
also, sat on the board of Burisma. You've got John Kerry's son sat on the board of Burisma. You've got Romney's son sat
mm-hmm.
on the board of Burisma. I mean, it is a cesspool. It is a seriously disgusting, just corruption like we've never seen. And I don't even know how we fix it, like I said, because they write the rules. And they're not going to write rules to restrict themselves. maybe what we need to do as Americans is maybe we need to require a pledge by anybody who's going to go into Congress that they're going to vote for term limits. Okay. I'll tell you something. I was a city councilman, okay, for Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. All right. I went by, I signed up or, ran for it because I saw corruption going on at the local level, and especially with slumlords. Okay. And there was a rule that we had in a city council where we could not meet, okay, with a lobbyist basically, or a member of the community, like, a business. Like if it was just a private person who wanted to just, share something with me, I could meet with them. But if it was somebody who's a business owner, I had to notify the press. That was a law. So that the press could be there. Why does Congress not have something like that? Why is it that lobbyists can come and go and can have all these private secret meetings and we don't know what the hell they're talking about? I find that highly suspect.
Oh, I mean, it certainly is. I mean, it's clearly built in such a manner so that it feeds into the corruption. Real quick, I just need to go through the super chats because we've gotten quite a few and there's a couple questions in here. Sunshine Again 1 said, Jim Watkins, San Jose, California, 12/17, 11 a.m. St. James Park. So I think that means that Jim Watkins is going to be in St. James Park. Thank you for that. And then also thank you to Stella, son of a green card, J.S., Graham Quinn, Boo Vudan says, Ivanka 2024, she is the Esther. I think Ivanka would make an excellent candidate. Gaffer Anon says, hey, Nate and Red Pill, enjoying tonight's show. Red Pilled a church youth group last night by leaving qmap.pub on their whiteboard before my Thursday night meeting, where we go one, we go all. Thanks for that, Gaffer. Warwolf said, for the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. Absolutely. Terry Fell, thank you for joining. Michael Kenny says, press 17 for bravery of both RP and Nate. Thank you for that, Michael. James Rohrback says, praying for you and Mel, Nate. And then thank you, James. Julia for Freedom, thank you for joining at the distributor level. Cool. White Hat, one of my mods, says, Papa D intel came in weeks before. IG only looked at info after. Durham has this. Predicate is bogus. I think that's a great point there. I mean, it wasn't Horowitz's purview to look into that. I mean,
that's right.
It is, however, the purview of Bull Durham, the U.S. Attorney for the state of Connecticut. Now, I've heard a lot of people, say that, nothing's going to come of it. The grand juries, they're going to be pulled out of D.C., and we know who the voters are in Washington, D.C. Well, very important. He's the U.S. attorney out of Connecticut, okay, which is removed from the D.C. cesspool. So when we're looking at everything that's taken place right now, what do you see as the next step that Durham is going to pick up now that we've got kind of some of these disclosures from the IG report?
Well, so here's the thing, right? This whole thing is an onion, and there's layers to it. Okay, a lot of people, you got to realize, all right, if I go backwards, and this is my timeline here, this is what I believe personally. I believe that Clinton Foundation and probably several others, okay, other foundations, were committing all kinds of crimes. Powerful people, okay. You can look at Schweizer's book, Clinton Cash, very, very good book. A lot of documented evidence of all kinds of criminal stuff related to money laundering. He came out with the other book, Empires, another one that I would highly recommend. And, the thing is that all that stuff was going on. I think the FBI and maybe other organizations knew that if anybody other than Hillary got elected, they were going to be found out for their covering up and for their, attempting to influence the election. Ironically, they were going to get caught. They were going to get found out, and maybe some other, things that they've been doing were going to get found out. And so their next step was to the first step was to cover up things, try to make sure that Hillary Clinton got elected. She didn't. So now they were on, oh crap, we got to go cover up. And so they start, covering up, they start, running interference. They do everything they can to basically prevent, the president from being able to, to order an investigation into their stuff. They accuse him of everything that they have been doing.
Projection.
Okay, exactly. And so this has been their modus operandum. They basically go through and they accuse Trump of everything that they have been doing. Then the next step is, they got to start an impeachment. So the way I look at it is Durham's got to work his way backwards. So first thing he's got to find was there a predicate for opening up the Mueller case, right? Because that's really what he's looking at. But there's other stuff that's happened since then, and so it takes him a longer time because he keeps having to looking into the FISA abuse, and he has to look into other things as well. And so he's wrapping that stuff up. I think Bill Barr said in his NBC interview that maybe early spring is when he thinks that it should be finished by. Okay. So once that's done, okay, then they figured out, okay, let's say that they discover that there was no predicate and that there was some sort of conspiracy. Now they got to investigate that. They got to investigate where did this conspiracy come from and who was involved in it, and was it involving the CIA and the Office of Intelligence and others? Were other people involved in it, Clapper and Brennan and foreign governments and all that. And I think he's already doing some of that too, right? So I think he's going to bring indictments that go beyond the Mueller investigation. Otherwise, why would he be over there in Italy, in the Ukraine, in Australia? Remember, this is something that I don't understand, how this has not ever been investigated, and at least I haven't seen it. When President Trump first took office, 2 of his private conversations, one with Mexico's leader and one with Australia's leader, got leaked. How in the hell did that happen? So I think there's a major investigation going on into the NSC. They got rid of Flynn, and he is key to this, because why did they get rid of him? They got rid of him because if Flynn had been in the NSC, he would have seen what was going on, and he would have reported it, and he would have stopped it. So they had to get rid of him, because the whole key to their spying operation and their leak, operation on Trump has been the NSC.
Well, and it was very important to do it so quickly, because Sally Yates was still acting Attorney General at that time.
That's right. Yeah. So, but this all goes back to so that's the next layer, right? Is looking at the NSC, how it got infiltrated. Was there a conspiracy? I am assuming that they are going to find that there was one, and they're going to find it. Then there was also another conspiracy going on. If you guys remember, there was the 302s, okay, from Hillary Clinton's investigation. And this is something that, I haven't heard much news about either. And I think these are things that we should all, those of us that have the time and have the ability to do so, we should dig into it, and we should look and try to see what we can find. But remember, there was in the 302, they talked about a shadow government. They talked about the 7th floor. Okay. They talked about, these are FBI agents were using these terms. Okay. So, when you think about that the shadow government, what does that mean? That means a government that's operating outside of the election. Okay. Bureaucrats who basically are acting, and with power, even though they're unelected. Okay. So Donald Trump threatened that entire thing, their entire network. Okay. Their network I believe has been involved in making money through, like what you said, through, illegal trading. And interestingly enough, one of the subjects, I'll just say, okay. So there were 4 subjects that I saw in the documentation I handed over. Okay. Money laundering, obviously, public corruption, okay, terrorism financing, and one other one that relates to something else that you said, which is securities and exchange fraud. Okay. So all of this stuff has got to be looked into. It's a massive, massive web. When these guys at the FBI said this could take down the government, they weren't kidding. Okay, because this involves more than just the Clintons. So, you know, it is something that is going to be painful, and they're going to have to be meticulous. They're going to have to make sure. Remember, they can't bring a prosecution unless they really honestly believe they're going to win.
Oh, of course.
Because when they try to bring a prosecution and they end up losing, it ends up hurting them. You know, and I'm not exactly sure how all that works. But there's some sort of rating or something like that's involved in it.
Oh, do you mean like as like a performance indicator that hurts them? Because I mean, besides just the fact that once you clue in the bad guys to exactly how it was that you caught them, I mean, then they can insulate themselves and remove themselves from the crime further. You know, there's another interesting method for enrichment that you didn't mention there, but that Q has mentioned, and that is the siphoning off of American taxpayer money and sending it off to you know, foundations and organizations, NGOs, places like the Red Cross, through initiatives like the Paris Climate Accord, things like that.
Yep, and some of those NGOs have been tied to terrorism groups. Something to keep in mind. A lot of those NGOs, you know, have like the whole Haiti thing that happened with the Clinton Foundation, where all this money went over there to build these houses that were never built. You know, this is huge. It's a massive investigation. And so, yeah, so, you know, you can't expect that this is going to be something that's going to finish, you know, quickly. It's going to be, and it's going to happen in layers, but they're going to try to round everything up that they can, you know, in one fell swoop, because like you said, once they capture people and once they make arrests and things like that, a lot of these powerful people, they're flight risk, man. They're going to leave. They're going to go to other places. They're going to insulate themselves. They're going to protect themselves. You know, so this brings us back to John Huber. Okay. So I want to talk about something related to John Huber. So John Huber was given a letter by Matthew Whitaker. Okay. Matthew Whitaker was, for a time, let me look on my dates here. I wrote some things down. From November 7th, 2018 to February 14th, 2019, he was the acting AG. Okay. That's interesting. So I didn't know that until I started looking into this just today. But he was the acting AG. That means he was the acting AG when I got raided. Okay. Nonetheless,
it lends credence to the idea that you were being protected, though.
Maybe. And here's why I say that. Okay. So I made my DOJ IG final disclosure, and I say final because I had 2 disclosures. Okay. I'm not going to get into the first one. That one's, you know, eventually I'll come out and talk about that. But that one was much earlier. But my second disclosure, okay, my final disclosure to the IG was on June 13th. Okay. June 13th, 2018. I was raided on November 19th, 2018. And what's interesting about that is November 19th, I got raided. Whitaker took control of the DOJ November 7th. Okay. Now, here's something important. Okay. They did take a thumb drive, or not a thumb drive, but basically it was an SD card. Okay. That had copies of stuff on it. There was a reason why I had that. Okay. And part of the reason was because there was some miscommunication, I think, that happened between the IG and myself and my lawyer. You know, look, this whole thing was very confusing, and I'll get into why that is. But basically, I had a very difficult time I had a very difficult time bringing this information forward because, for one thing, I couldn't go the route of the ICIG. Okay. And the reason for that was because Michael Atkinson, he was and I have it right here. Let's see here. Make sure I get his title right. Okay.
I want to give him credit where it's due.
Here's what it says. I'm going to read a paragraph from the document that my lawyer submitted. I had a code name. Okay. My name was not given out to anybody. The only person who knew my name was my lawyer. Okay. I was given a code name MC POTA. All right. So it says here MC POTA advises and intends to inform Congress that the enclosed classified documents include substantial evidence that persons currently holding positions of responsibility in the Department of Justice, including the FBI and elsewhere in the government, among whom are former FBI Director and current Special Counsel Robert Mueller and the former Deputy Chief and Acting Chief of the Fraud and Public Corruption Section, who is currently the Intelligence Community Inspector General, Michael K. Atkinson. That's important. Failed at various times from the period from January 1st, 2009 to the present to enforce multiple United States criminal laws and other laws, as well as counterintelligence and foreign investment policies and directives against Hillary Rodham Clinton and persons associated or acting in concert with her, and against investments by Rosatom, State Corporation, AO, Otto Menner, GoProm, I'm probably butchering that, and Arms Uranium Holdings Company in Uranium One. The fact these persons continue to hold senior positions of high trust and responsibility in the Department of Justice and elsewhere in the government, and that their failure to act as described in this paragraph has not been reversed by the Department of Justice to date, is an urgent concern as defined in the ICWPA. Okay. And then he went on to say, please be advised, MC POTA hopes and expects that you will find this information he is reporting credible. But in the event that you were to find otherwise or not respond within the time prescribed in the ICWPA, and there's rules regarding this, and we followed those rules, for his disclosure to the HPSI and the SSCI, the HPSI's, the House Permanent Select Intelligence, House Permanent Select Intelligence Committee, and the SISI, appropriate name, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, MC POTA advises that he would still report this letter and enclosed classified documents to the Congressional Intelligence Committees as an urgent concern under the ICWPA. My client is ready to cooperate with reasonable and timely requests to protect national security as provided by the ICWPA. Okay, so here's the deal. I had a right, okay, under the law, to have this information to take to those committees. But there was a time period that information had to be reviewed by Horowitz. Now, when I took that information to Horowitz, we asked them, how do you want it? Do you want us to give you the thumb drive? They said no. And the reason they said no is because under the ICWPA, I have the right to take that information myself to those committees. Okay? So that's probably where things got messed up, because basically they asked for me to make a printout. Okay. And there was a lot of printing, and it was 400 and 28 pages or 458. I don't remember exactly. But it was a large amount of paperwork. It was a stack that was this thick, and double wrap it and follow all the procedures, write secret on the inside envelope, and all that. So I went to painstaking methods of doing all this. We agreed to do a handoff. We met at St. John's Church across from the White House. My lawyer arranged for me to get me and him to get there early. We went inside, we got down on our knees, and we prayed. I think he was a little nervous about all this too. He'd never really had to deal with, I think, anything of this nature, and dealing with the people that we were dealing with.
Well, this is real cloak and dagger right here.
It was. So I wore a hoodie, I wore sunglasses. I made sure to check to make sure no cameras were around. I didn't want any way for them to be able to identify who I was. Okay. We used a code name. They agreed, to allow me to use a code name. They asked for me to print these documents out. I delivered them as they asked. I sat in the front pew. Michael went back to the back, met with, let's see here. Josh Mann. Okay, he's the deputy to Michael Horowitz, and Mike walked him in. He stopped one pew behind me. Michael said, "Now." I took the package, okay, with my right hand. I handed it over my left shoulder.
So they never saw your face.
They never saw my face. I never spoke a word. They took it, so they didn't have no voice recognition of me. They had no facial recognition of me. Look, I took extreme measures to protect who I was. I had never had any intention of ever being revealed. So what happened was that was it, and then we left, and afterwards I didn't hear anything for a while, and then and I thought I was done. But the problem was I still had this drive,
this extra drive,
and I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with this? And the funny thing about it, ironically, I had my lawyer like a couple weeks before had told me we need to do something with that drive. We're going to get it in the right hands. And we had talked about it, and but we hadn't done anything about it, and I had forgotten. After that conversation, I'm busy, man. I'm just doing stuff, and I forgot. And I think it was like sitting up here in a drawer or something, in my desk. And so when the FBI showed up, they ended up getting that. So
now, before you continue, do you have any idea of how you were exposed, how you were named, how your name got out?
Okay, so a couple of things. I don't know what prompted the raid. Okay, I know how my name got exposed. My name got exposed because I gave permission, okay, to my lawyer to meet with Richard, or to give an interview to Richard Pollock. What I was told was that Richard Pollock had contacted my lawyer to tell him that he had heard through a source that they had that somebody at another newspaper was going to write a hit piece on me, that I had been raided and that I had classified information or whatever, that I had stolen government property or whatever, and so that they were going to write a hit piece on me. And he had reached out to my lawyer to say, hey, do you want to get your side of the story out there first? And so my lawyer contacted me and told me, and I was horrified. At that point I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember, just feeling this like sick feeling in the pit of my stomach, knowing that my name's about to get exposed one way or the other. So I really didn't have a choice. I told Michael, I said, yeah, go ahead. And that leak could have come from a number of sources. And there's a couple I had not even thought about until just now. It could have come from inside the FBI. It could have come from, because somebody, and I think it was the Washington Post, if I'm not mistaken, that was going to do the hit piece. But it could have been whoever their source was. Could have been somebody at the FBI. It could have been somebody at the DOJ. It could have been somebody in the courts, who signed off on the warrant. It could have been somebody at my current employer, because when I got raided, I had to tell them. And I had to report it to my security officer because I have a clearance that I had a law enforcement interaction. And, and it could have been, somebody, there was a number of lawyers that the company had. I mean, who knows? Anybody could have leaked that information out. I don't think somebody from the company would, because, they don't like publicity, generally speaking, especially if it might be negative. But yeah, so I don't know how my name got out there. Okay. But there is another theory. There's a great writer and from the Epoch Times, and his name is Ivan Penchikov. I was probably butchering his name too.
It's Penchikov, yeah.
Penchikov. Okay, there. Yeah, see. All right, but he's been following the story on the Uranium One thing for some time now, and in fact, he reached out to me recently. I know he's trying to get some sources and confirm some things with a second source. But he's got a story that's probably going to be coming out about me soon, on kind of just following up about what's happened a year later since the raid. But he released an interesting story, and we talked about this. So a couple things happened. Back in October of 2017, I want to say it was October 17th, I think. I might be wrong on that date. I don't have it written down. John Solomon released a report or released a news report on some information, basically stating that the FBI had known about the Russians' attempts to infiltrate our uranium supply chain prior to the sale of and the approval of by the CFIUS committee of uranium 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, why that's kind of interesting is so that was on October 17th. I never saw that article. And for the record, I will say this. I have never spoken to John Solomon. I would have loved to, have talked to him because I think he knows everything.
Yes,
but,
I agree. Yeah.
But I never spoke with him. I've never spoken to him. But two reporters that I actually think have gotten a lot of things right are John Solomon and Sarah Carter. And I didn't see that article, but the information that I handed over had a lot of information in there on Russian intelligence, and some of it related to that exact topic. So it's possible, and I think that this might be a possibility, that maybe his story might have, instigated a leak investigation, and maybe somehow I got caught up in that, and that's a possibility. So, best case scenario, maybe that's what happened, and maybe that's why they raided my house. Because in all honesty, the agents, when they showed up, they were respectful. They were, they didn't come in. It was not a Roger Stone type raid. They didn't kick my door down. They didn't come in guns blazing. They, were calm. There still was 16 of them. They did go through my entire house and my life and everything, and it was a frightening experience. And they did some things wrong. I think soon the moment I told them I was a whistleblower, I believe at that moment they should have stopped.
Yeah.
Made a phone call to let the lawyer or let the judge know that, hey, we have some new information. This guy is a whistleblower. We didn't know that. They seemed like they didn't know, and who knows, man. These guys are good at like playing good cop, bad cop, and
right.
So I don't know what they knew and what they didn't know, but they seemed like they didn't know. And as soon as I told them that fact, they could have made a phone call and confirmed it, because I told them everything. I told them everything. They know everything. Okay. So my lawyer was very pissed off at me because, and even my dad, I failed my dad's last piece of wisdom that he gave me before I left home, which was, son, if you're ever arrested, don't say anything without a lawyer present. He says, I don't care if they catch you in the act of committing a crime. You don't say anything without a lawyer. And it was like, I laughed at him because, I was like the good old Christian boy, when I left home and everything. And so I'm like, Dad, why are you saying this to me? I've never done drugs. I'd never drank. I was like, Mr. Boy Scout. But, it's
you never know where life's going to take you.
It's a good piece of advice, okay? Tell your kids before they go home or before they leave home.
Oh, it's so true.
So the thing is I told them everything. The only time I stopped, and mainly because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, and I didn't want to come across as not cooperating.
Of course.
Now there's a couple of things. They also had not at that point read me my rights either. Okay. So I wasn't under the impression that I was, that there was anything going on at that point. I had a slight suspicion in the back of my head that maybe they had a search warrant, but they had not revealed that to me at that point. And they also had not read me my rights. Had they read me my rights, and this is why the Miranda rights are so important. Okay. Listen, had they read me my rights, do you think I would have said anything to them? Hell no. If they had read me my rights, I would have been like, I want my lawyer. I'm not, because they're telling you when they're reading you the Miranda rights, anything you say can and will be used against you, right?
Right.
So the reason why they came up with the Miranda rights and it became a requirement is so that when they tell you that, it prompts you to know your rights, that you can call an attorney. And I should have talked to my attorney right away. Okay. But they didn't read me my rights. All right. They just, they started asking questions, and I volunteered information. Now, whether that turned out good or bad for me, I don't know, because I did cooperate, and I gave them everything. And then, and they, they went and they're showing me all my stuff, and they're going, yes, this is like a categorized document of all of my equipment that they took. And they took basically everything electronic, every computer. That's another thing that kind of sucks, just as a side note. By the time I get my crap back, it's all going to be outdated, man.
Yeah.
I had a nice Apple Mac or iMac, and I just upgraded the RAM on it, like literally like 2 days before they took it. And I'm like, seriously? So that sucked. But
it's not inexpensive either.
No, it's not, man. It's not at all. But so yeah, when they came through and they did their thing, they were respectful. I don't have any, I got no bones with those guys. They're cops. They're doing what their job is. Whether it was predicated, this new word that we're all using now. Okay, whether their investigation to me was predicated on right things or not. Who knows? But in the end, I honestly do believe that truth will prevail. I do believe that God is, has been with me. I have witnesses with me, both disclosures. Okay, so I didn't do this, in any way that could, be, I guess, used against me. Okay, I was very careful and methodical in the way that I went about it, because I know better. I know better than to trust. Okay. That old saying, trust but verify.
Exactly.
So going back to the dates and everything, here's something interesting. So I made my disclosure in June. So July, August, September, October, November. So 5 months pass, and on November 19th they show up. Okay. Now Whitaker had just taken the position. They show up. They have possession now of everything. Okay, and I did give them the password to the SD card, because again, I wanted to cooperate, and I figured, hey, they can find out anyways, because I figured at that point I was like, well, if they're at my house, then the likelihood is they know what documents I took.
Exactly.
So why should I not tell them? Because that's only going to prove that I took those documents, and it's going to prove they can verify that with the IG's office that yes, right, I was a whistleblower and blah blah blah. However, there's that problem in that the IG's office doesn't even know my name.
Right.
So so I think I did tell them that I had a code name, MC Poda, and so hopefully they probably verified that. And I think they probably verified these things, because here it is a year later, I still have my clearance. It was never suspended. While I did suffer losing my job, that had nothing to do that had more to do with the VA. Don't get me started on that.
Nate, I'm so sorry. I need to take a brief intermission. My dog is scratching at the door, and no one's here to let her out. So
yeah, go right ahead, man.
All right. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put the theme music on, and I'm gonna go to the intro card, and then folks, I will be back in less than 3 minutes. Okay, so we'll see you in just a second. right, guys, happy pappies. They're doing good. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We lost a couple people there. Hopefully they're going to come back. We are back. Okay, so Nate, I'm sorry. Please continue.
That's all right. So, anyways, going back to John Huber, I want to talk about that because we got like 30 minutes left or something like that. So, this is kind of important, guys. Look, these guys are doing a difficult job. They got a lot of stuff that they've got to review. Millions of documents, a lot of things they have to investigate. They're following the money. They are interviewing people. I've never been interviewed, by anybody, and I don't necessarily see the need for that. The information that I handed over was information the FBI already had. And that's important to understand. A lot of people, have some people have asked me, has John Huber ever interviewed you? No, he doesn't need to. I didn't witness anything personally, other than the documents, and I took those physical documents and I handed them over. So there's no reason, for me to be interviewed. But
this is an important distinction to make too, in terms of somebody presenting actual physical evidence that they have knowledge of versus someone presenting hearsay evidence of people just speaking about things that they think are crimes but are not actually crimes.
Yeah, an example, let's say that I had taken the conversation that I had heard in the office. Oh, I heard this rumor in the office. If I had gone and blown, I would never blow the whistle on a rumor that I heard, okay? Now, I used that rumor to do some investigating myself. It caused me to look into things myself, and then when I looked into it and I found, because why would I go and take the risk? So that's something that to me is very suspicious about that other whistleblower, is that if he has some information, if he heard something, why didn't he go and look it up?
Right.
Okay. And if he didn't go look it up, or why didn't he investigate it himself? Or tell the other person who told him, hey, you need to file a whistleblower complaint. If the person who heard it himself didn't file the whistleblower complaint, why do you think that was? Because he knew it wasn't worthy of a whistleblowing complaint. Yeah. And so so that's just another side note. But John Huber, he was tasked by Jeff Sessions, to look into the Clinton Foundation Uranium One. And to and that was prompted, I think, by a letter from Congress. Yes, it was prompted by a letter from Senator Chuck Grassley, Representative Bob Goodlatte, and Representative Trey Gowdy. They specifically penned a letter and asked them to look into these matters, specifically to look into whether or not things were ignored, and whether or not the case was basically shut down, All that happened incidentally right around, and I didn't know about that because those were letters that weren't necessarily public at the time. But all that happened right around the same time that I kind of came forward with my information. Mm-hmm. So I think that there was plenty of evidence that Jeff Sessions had that something needed to be looked back into. So for all of the negative things a lot of people have had to say about Jeff Sessions, the one thing that I will say is he did two things. I was given the impression that he didn't really look into anything that I said. I was given that impression because I was told, well, he basically is choosing not to, do anything. He just sent it back down with no redactions. But interestingly enough, him not requiring any redactions meant that those documents that I turned over went to both the HIPSI and the SISI completely unredacted. So they were able to see all the names, all the bank accounts, all the businesses, all the shell corporations, all the Russians who were involved, all the people who were involved, the dates and the times and all that stuff. They saw it all. So I know for a fact that the HIPSI received the information, and it's not like it's not like I can pick who I want it to go to. It goes to the whole HIPSI. That means both sides saw it. That means not only did Devin Nunes see it, but it also means that Adam Schiff saw it. So that means that Schiff,
leaker in chief.
Yep. So that means that Schiff, when he saw it, and then he became the chairman like a few months after that. Okay, because the Democrats won the House. There wasn't a whole lot that Devin Nunes could do about it. Okay, because he only had it for a few months, and and it ended up going to but it looks like some other people were already kind of onto that, right? And they were looking into these things. So John Huber was looking into it. We know that there were two two private investigators that were that testified, about it. And then I saw this article, and it says, based on the content of that letter, Huber may be investigating one, and he's talking about the letter that was hand delivered by Whitaker. Huber may be investigating one or more of the Clinton-related matters the FBI was pursuing in 2016 and 17. Okay, this article came out in 2019, I think March. Okay, and it's an interesting one. But one thing, so this is something interesting. Okay, so a lot of people speculate, why Huber? Why John Huber?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is interesting. This is fascinating. A lot of people thought, because he's far away from Washington, D.C. And yeah, that's true. But here's another little factoid that was in this article, and hat tip to Ivan on this one, and the Epoch Times. It says Huber may also be investigating whether the approval of the sale of Canadian mining company Uranium One to Russia had any connection to millions of dollars that parties benefited from the deal gave to the Clinton Foundation. Republicans have called on Sessions to investigate the matter as early as 2017. Okay. Now, we know that he was investigating it, in 2017 because that letter went over there. Sessions told the House Judiciary Committee on November 2017, interestingly enough, right at the time of my raid, right at the time that he would have seen all the documents that I handed over, that he had assigned a federal prosecutor to investigate the matter. Okay, so it says, he's telling him right there, November, he assigned him. Notably, Uranium One had significant holdings in Utah, where Huber is based, including a small town, a uranium mill, and more than 10,000 acres of uranium claims. So now I think we know why Huber was chosen to investigate this issue.
Because it had a direct effect upon Utah and the uranium industry there.
That's right. So why? So interestingly enough, there's never been a single leak that's ever come out of Huber's investigations, other than that FOIA request, which forced that letter out into the open. Okay, but there has not been any leaks. So I think we should not give up hope that something may end up happening out of that. As far as we know, it's still going on. Now, there was this kind of a misnomer. There was a story that came out. Let's see if I can find it real quick here.
While you're looking for that, Nate, I'm just going to go through a couple more super chats because we've got a bunch.
Sure.
Was that you? Said, God bless you all and Merry Christmas. Thank you for that. Mark 222714 FTW. Thank you for the super chat. Same to you, Michelle Mangiavallo. Michael Kenny says, how does it work when you are on the inside? Is there a lies.gov website that governments have access to? What do you all use to get the secret info? I would imagine there's probably, lots of different repositories for secret info. As we stated earlier, it's all compartmentalized specifically based upon, category, I would think, department. But there are proprietary government systems where information is housed, right, Nate?
Yeah, there is. So you got different systems. You got unclass. You have, and that would be like would hold information that is sensitive but unclassified. You have the secret level systems, and at the FBI, and it's their own private network, but it's connected, through. I probably shouldn't get into it, but basically, it's classified up to secret, and then they have a separate network that is classified up to top secret, and within each of those networks, right, they have compartmentalized areas, right? So you might have, something that sits behind another password protected database, And but then they have other areas. So in the FBI, the reason I was able to find some of this information is because when an investigation first occurs, a lot of information kind of gets dumped into one area so that they can kind of parse through it, and then they kind of assign different things to different subsections, like maybe finance, or maybe public corruption or money laundering, or whatever the different groups are that are looking into very specific crimes. So a lot of this stuff is, was just kind of sitting in one location that I had access to. And so there's probably a lot of stuff that I never did see there's probably more information that was there that I didn't have access to see. And, there's a, so going back though to this thing about Huber.
Please.
So this article here is The American Thinker, and as of November 19th, 2019. Okay. So it was basically right around,
the anniversary.
The anniversary. They put out this article, Clinton Foundation Bleeding Money with No Clintons in High Office. And it's going into the whole thing about how they basically, the foundation reported a $16.8 million net loss. Okay. And so basically now that they don't have any, position to pay to play, they're losing money, and so it's just, to me, it's more circumstantial proof, that the only reason they were making money was because people thought they could garner influence. So interestingly enough, that the very last paragraph of this article is interesting. It says, U.S. Attorney for Utah, John Huber, has been tasked with investigating the Clinton Foundation. So far, there has not been a single leak out of his office over its work. That could mean either they have turned up nothing, which we know that's not the case.
I can't believe that's the case.
Or that honestly, if they say that they turned up nothing, then I'm going to say, you know what, they buried this.
Done.
I'm done.
I'm retiring, guys.
That's right. But they said here, either they turned up nothing, or that the investigation and grand jury are proceeding with the secrecy that law demands.
Exactly. And this is a very, very important point. People are so used to hearing leaks. They are used to getting tidbits of information as an investigation progresses along, or as those involved see fit to, impugn the character of whoever it is that they're trying to take down. We should never hear leaks coming from the inside of an investigation that has this level of sensitivity and importance to the foundation of our country. Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, all of these people that we are working so hard to unseat, this is the most important landmark case and series of cases that I think we've ever seen in the history of our country, if not the history of the world. So in my eyes, the fact that we're not hearing any leaks coming out, it means that they want to adequately prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law in the best possible way that they can. Because if they screw the pooch on this, for lack of a better phrase, then we're not going to get another chance.
Okay, so here's another little thing that might help you guys understand timing on this whole thing. Okay, so Bill Barr said in an NBC interview, it says here, CBS News, in an interview published on May 31st, that U.S. Attorney John Huber's investigation of Clinton is winding down. Then Attorney General, and so that's interesting. So he said back in May of this year that John Huber's investigation was winding down. Okay, so May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. All right, we're now like 7 months past that when him saying that they were winding down. Okay, now it's possible they might have been winding down and maybe they got new evidence and it's, kind of extended things out. Or it's possible they really have started winding down and now they're moving through the process of grand juries and things like that. So here's the deal. Okay, so if that's 7 months, okay, that we are in right now, and we haven't seen action from the time that he said they were winding down, you guys got to realize something, okay? He just said in an NBC interview just the other day that that John Durham is also winding down on his investigation and is wrapping it up. But he was pressed by the interviewer as to when we should see some action or a report come out or something like that. And he said early spring. Okay, that's quite a ways away.
It is.
All right, so these things take time. It's not like, it's not like we can just snap our fingers, because again, I don't know about you guys, but if these people are guilty of these crimes, I want to see them convicted and put in prison.
Absolutely.
Okay. The only way that happens is if they actually do a responsible job, and and they get everything that they need to get, so that they can bring a solid case. Right. We don't want them bringing a half-assed case.
No. And Cyber had asked an interesting question earlier. Do you think that do you think it'll speed things up or slow things down if Hillary Clinton does throw her hat into the ring? Because that's another big theory, that people think that Hillary Clinton is going to come and, put her name in there as a Democratic contender, because she would be the top of the heap if she was to do that. But then also she would be able to claim that President Trump is, coming after her because she's his political opponent, not because she's broken any laws, not because she's a corrupt individual, but just simply because she's running against him.
Look, the Democrats are going to say whatever the Democrats are going to say. They're corrupt. All right. That's the bottom line. You look at Biden as a perfect example. They are claiming that our president, okay, let's just say that what they said is true, and it's not, but let's just say that what they said is true, that he asked Zelensky to investigate Biden. And that's not what happened. Okay, but let's say that it is, for the sake of argument. What is wrong with that? If the guy, he publicly said that he blackmailed the former president of the Ukraine to fire
prosecutor general. Well, yeah.
President. No, to get the prosecutor general fired. Yep. So the point is he admitted to a crime. So what are we saying now? Are we saying that as in America, if you are a politician running for office, you are above the law? Is that what we're saying? Because that's what the Democrats would have you believe. Yeah. They would have you believe that all you got to do. So in other words, if you go out and commit a crime, and if you're under investigation, then you better run for president, because as long as you're running for president, nobody can come after you. That's bullcrap. That is absolute bullcrap. If you commit a crime and you are being investigated, nothing like running for office should be able to stop you from being prosecuted. But that is exactly what they would have you believe. Yep. And that is what they are trying to insinuate. So that means that let's take that and let's flip that around on them, and basically then Trump himself is a candidate too for the next election. Mm-hmm. So how can they be doing an impeachment on him? It's a completely double standard. Farce. I can't remember who said it, but I love the saying: the only standards that Democrats have are double standards.
That's right.
So
it's very true.
And on that note, look, do I have political bias? Of course I do. Everybody does. Anybody who says they don't is either a liar or they are not a very interesting person, because it's like, what do they say? The three most interesting but dangerous topics to talk about, right, are religion, sex, and politics.
That's right. Yeah.
So everybody has an opinion, okay, but you can have an opinion and you can still believe in doing the right thing. Look, President Trump is he is a different personality type than I like to normally deal with. Okay. When he, it's funny. When I was in the Army, I met a lot of people from a lot of different places. The people I got along with the least were people from New York. Okay. Because they're just kind of caustic people when they're pissed off and they want to, they get in your face. You don't have to worry about getting stabbed in the back by a New Yorker. They'll stab you right in the face. So it's kind of interesting. I think a lot of people have a hard time with the president's personality and the way that he communicates and the way that he bashes, people, or he memes them or teases them. but that's just the way he is. He's a New Yorker. So, I don't look at that as a reflection of his ability to be a good president. Let's look at what he's done and what he's accomplished as president. It's pretty amazing. I don't think we've had an economy as strong as this, in a short of turnaround time ever in the history of the United States. The unemployment numbers for the African American community, for
every demographic,
for every demographic. I mean, I think it is just amazing. He has really done a great job, and the way that he is holding people accountable in NATO, the way that he has followed through on all of his promises that he has made, on every single one of them, to the best of his ability. There's things that, of course, he hasn't been able to accomplish because the Democrats have blocked him. But in every area where he's had the ability to, he's been able to do it.
Well, and if you look at the country as a whole, the FBI has been making unprecedented moves to root out corruption in local and state offices. Chicago, you look at Chicago, you look at Maryland, and I'm sure that there are many other areas throughout the country. I just don't have the stats.
Human trafficking has been, been a lot of human traffickers and these pedophiles have been arrested. You've got, all of the corruption in local offices and local governments that's been they've been going after. So can we all agree? Look, are there problems at the FBI? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think Christopher Wray, I don't think he's a bad guy, but I think that he's in a bubble.
He's a placeholder, I think.
And I think he sees his job as protecting the reputation of the FBI, and I think he's a little bit in a bubble, and that he doesn't realize the FBI's reputation has already been destroyed. So now the only way to fix the FBI's reputation is to have transparency, like an unbelievable level of transparency as to how he is cleaning it up. He is, I believe, doing a lot to clean it up, but he's not being open about it. He's not being public about it. He's not, because he's afraid it might embarrass, the agency or whatever. And I think if he were to be more transparent, I think the American people would have a lot more faith in his ability to restore the FBI.
Right.
So, honestly, if he's not going to comply with the president's wishes, just like every other executive out there, you're fired.
Get him out.
President's a great, famous saying, "You're fired." I think I have seen no problem with that.
Absolutely.
People in the executive, they serve at the pleasure of the president. And something that we all need to remember: the mainstream media, they have lied to us, they have cheated us. They have completely deceived the American people. I remember during the Comey hearings and things like that, when the Republicans were coming against Comey, and I remember the media coming out and saying, "Oh, the FBI is supposed to have independence. They're supposed to be an independent organization." Bull crap. Read the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution is clear. The executive and everybody in the executive falls under the President of the United States. Absolutely. We only have one person in charge under the executive branch, and that is the president, because he is elected.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else, the president and the vice president, they're the only ones in the executive who are elected. Everybody else is appointed. So there is no such thing as independence from the president of the United States in terms of his executive.
Chain of command.
And then this other matter is this nonsense about 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 the Democrats, impeaching president on matter. One of the charges is obstruction of Congress. Give me a break. All Obama did during his entire reign was obstruct Congress.
Yep.
And not only that, but the fact is there's something called the separation of powers.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if these Democrats would read the Constitution, they get up there all high and mighty and they're sitting there talking about, the Constitution this, the Constitution that. I've wanted to throw up, because I'm like, seriously, you guys are the ones that want to change the Constitution. You guys that believe the Constitution is a living, breathing document and should be interpreted however you want. So don't tell me that the Constitution, that you love the Constitution. You're a liar. You don't love the Constitution. So that is something that really bothered me, and something I want to make clear. The FBI is not independent, nor is the CIA, nor is any other agency under the executive. And just like the president cannot create law and should not create law. That is a duty for the Congress. The Congress also, okay, cannot force the executive, to execute. There's a separation of powers there, and think about this. They want the president's tax records. They want his financial records for Trump Organization. All of that. The Supreme Court has finally today announced that they're going to take up this case. The reason why that is important is because if this happens, if the Supreme Court allows Congress, okay, to reach in and take, the personal financial records and the corporate financial records of the president, okay, then you effectively will have an abuse of power by Congress, and you will have them having sway over the executive branch. They'll be able to hold the executive branch hostage. You will no longer have a separation of powers. So it is extremely important that they stop this tyranny, that the Dems are trying to utilize in abusing their power of subpoena. It is a very dangerous thing. Look, the only reason why this country has lasted as long as it has as a republic, and that's another thing that bothers me, we are not a democracy. We are a republic.
Right.
So every time you hear a Democrat, when I was driving home, I'm listening to the impeachment hearing. I keep hearing them talking about our democracy, our democracy. Man, I'll be honest, and this is a perfect example how I'm not the best Christian always, okay, but I was cussing and swearing at my phone as I'm driving home, because I'm listening to this and it's just driving me up the wall that they keep, because I believe they're doing it intentionally. I believe they're doing it intentionally because they're trying to gaslight the American people into thinking that we have a democracy. The fact is we have a representative government through republic.
I think they're definitely counting on the fact that people are not educated on what's going on, or even the structure of government, how it's supposed to work. Nate, I need to do the rest of these super chats because we're looking at 7 minutes left.
Let's go for it.
So let's see. Baby Yoda said, "Try not to smile. Best. I always smile. Can't help that. Thank you for that." I want to say thank you to everybody who joined as a member tonight, you guys. That was unprecedented. There's too many people for me to be even able to read them all. Jeff Lake, thank you for the super chat. Michael Kenny, you gave several super chats. I appreciate that, buddy. Let's see. I just jumped ahead. Hold on. Where was it? Oh man, there were so many. There we go. LOL, that's a cute idea. Let's see. Son of a Green Card said Article 1, Section 6, Clause 1 from the Constitution. Let's see. Baby Yoda again says, "Thanks for helping Marf. No reply necessary." What is Marf? I don't know what Marf means, Baby Yoda. You're going to have to clue me in. Michael Kenny said, "Hit 17 if we need an all-encompassing video that lays out the Q movement. We will definitely get going on that." Hey Jude said, "Frodo Cuomo labeled POTUS as Dirty Donald tonight. It's now trending on Twitter. These people are sick." That's another thing that's so annoying to me. You see something trending on Twitter, there's maybe 1,500 people tweeting it, but it's a leftist thing, so they put it in the trending tab. Meanwhile, we've got IG Horowitz trending with like 40,000 people mentioning the IG report, and they don't have it trending. Baby Yoda, again, thank you very much. Let's see, I asked that question already. Chris R. Cheryl Bramer said, "I heard a while back that Gowdy was a member of the trumpet team. Any insight? Also, why do they call them the Gang of Eight?" Well, I can tell you the Gang of Eight is, they're 4 and 4. It's 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, and they sit on the same committee. Is that the Intelligence Committee, or is it a number of
Judiciary, I think.
Judiciary, okay. All right. And then Cat Wheeler, thank you for that. Son of a Green Card said, "Nate, any thoughts on relocating to somewhere that you can slip away?" And he said he DM'd you. Talk about that. For the foreseeable future, do you plan to stay in the area where you're at right now, or do you have any ideas of
staying in the cesspool, the swamp here in DC? Well, like 90% of the jobs that my clearance and everything allow me to do are in this area. But there's some new things that are coming up. I'm not ready to announce that, but I will say this much: I am considering and praying about helping to form a whistleblower foundation specifically to help whistleblowers in the intelligence community. I think it's something that's badly needed. And so more will be coming out about that later. I'm hoping to get some, high profile people to be involved in. I don't want to lead it necessarily, but I would love to support and encourage something like that. There are a couple of whistleblowing foundations, but they're not specifically geared towards helping people who are dealing with classified information. And I think we need something like that that's independent from government, that has lawyers that can review classified information, that has lawyers that can help people steer, basically manage those very treacherous waters of bringing that kind of information to light.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm praying about it, and we'll see what happens. And then as far as like the future, who knows, man? I've lived in a lot of different places. I've lived in Japan. I lived in Korea. I lived in several states, and I love adventure. So we'll see. I don't know.
All right, beautiful. And then Son of a Green Card sent another one, and he mentioned that 1999 treaty between us and Ukraine. If President Trump had ignored the fact that Joe Biden was so clearly participating in the bribery and the scandals that he was in Ukraine, then he would be breaking the laws of that treaty. And so that would be a problem too. Michael Kenny said, last super chat, RP78, keep up the great work. Thank you very much. And WitchyPoo22 said, thank you, Red Pill 78. Great show tonight. Thank you, everybody, for all of those super chats and your generosity. Once again, if you want to go ahead and join up, then you will be seeing some new perks popping up in the community tab on my channel page. So Nate, now that you're out here, now that you're talking about this, what do you think? Are you going to continue to elaborate on your story, or are you going to have to wait until things play out before you can even consider it?
Look, there was a person who was involved in helping me to come forward, originally. And I haven't ever released his name. I spoke to him recently. I think I am going to come out and share that missing piece of the story. But I am waiting for a little bit because it's for reasons that will be obvious when I finally share this piece of the story. But I probably will share some more. I'm probably going to take a break, through the holidays and everything, because, I've done, back-to-back interviews here the last, few weeks, and it wears on you. It's stressful to my family. It's stressful to my wife, my poor wife. And there's always a risk that I might, go too far and say something I shouldn't talk about. So I got to think about that. But I am going to probably take a break. I do eventually want to write a book. I kind of put it on hold, and probably won't be able to publish the book until after some things kind of clear. But I'm working on it. And my wife actually has started writing, and she's written several chapters from her perspective of what she went through. Because, the day that I went to, to go blow the whistle, I came home and I talked to her and I told her, and she was, of course, completely freaked out and tried to talk me out of it. And, but, I told her, and she knew that I was not going to be able to, live with myself not doing the right thing. So she has a very interesting perspective as the wife of a whistleblower. I'm thinking about maybe changing up the way that I was originally thinking of doing the book, and making it with a chapter from her perspective, a chapter from my perspective, a chapter maybe from my lawyer's perspective. I don't know. I haven't talked to him about that yet. So if he's watching this,
Michael, Lord of the Rings of the whistleblower beltway.
Yeah, but like and then this other character who I haven't revealed who he is, who was very instrumental in helping me to come forward. One thing I'll share about him is he got shot at 5 days after, basically setting up, the first disclosure. He set it up, a clandestine meet for me to disclose to the government what was going on, and he got shot at and he had to move. And so I'm not ready to reveal his name yet. It's going to come soon. All right. But I might have him, offer him to write maybe the forward, or maybe write, a chapter, about his experience in all of this. The fact is that whistleblowing at this kind of level, it affects multiple people. A lot of people, give me a lot of praise and all of that. But my wife has gone through a whole lot. My kids have gone through a whole lot. My lawyer even has gone through a lot. And so has, these other people that are involved. It's a very dangerous thing. A lot of people have said to me, hey, keep your head on a swivel. Don't get Arkansided. Don't have any accidents. I mean, it's like, there's a legitimate fear there, and there are bad people out there who, who do intend to harm people, and I'm not going to allege anything like that from certain individuals, but you guys know who I'm talking about. So at the end of the day, a lot of people, get hurt in these types of situations. I have it's been very painful to my family, and and just it's been a very difficult time, but we're getting through it with God's grace. And I have hope. I have hope for the future. I have hope. I really have a great respect for Bill Barr, and I think that he's doing an excellent job. These U.S. attorneys, I know these guys are professionals, and I know that they're doing their job, and I know the FBI is working hard and trying to do their best. There are a few bad apples, most of who've been removed, okay, that really did some serious damage to the reputation of the FBI. And unfortunately, anytime you have any position of power, it's like that old saying, power corrupts. And so you're likely going to have, people who are going to get corrupted by it, that aren't good people, or people who have a weakness. And I think that's what happens to Congress people. They get in there, and maybe they mean well at first, and then they get corrupted by the power that that they get. And we're all susceptible to that, myself included. The last thing I'll say this, in closing, is we are all susceptible to sinning and falling and making mistakes. It's why we need God in our lives. So the best thing that we can do is try to live our lives. There's three things that, I was talking to my kids this morning about it. There's three things that lead to success in life. One is, hard work, putting in the effort. Two is education. We have to educate ourselves. We can't just be, dummies. We got to educate ourselves. And the third thing is we need a little bit of luck. In my case, I call that, God. We need a little bit of God's, special grace in our lives to open up doors of opportunity for us and things like that. And so we can't live really, we can't be successful with just two of those. We need all three. If we have, if we work hard and we put our mind to it and we put our effort into it and we have all the knowledge in the world, but we don't have the opportunity, we don't have the door opening for us, then we're not going to be able to have those successes, right? So that's why we have to pray. That's why we have to ask God for help. And we need to, humble ourselves enough to realize that it's not just about us. It's not just about what we put into it. The other things that we need, though, is we need to educate ourselves. If we can have a great prayer life, right? And we can have great, discipline and hard work. But if we're ignorant and we don't know, then we're never going to be able to get out of whatever situation that we're in terms of financially or whatever. And then, of course, the last one is, hard work. We can have all the knowledge in the world. We can pray and ask God to help us. But if we're lazy and we don't put our best effort forward, we're not going to be, successful. So
absolutely.
This whole thing, this whistleblowing adventure, call it that, nightmare, whatever you want to call it, has been I'm grateful actually for all of the difficulty that I've gone through. It has grown me in leaps and bounds in terms of my faith in God, my strength of character, my ability to not be afraid, and to do the right thing. It's every time you face a trial, you face an obstacle, it you come out of it a stronger person. And so when we have these difficulties hit our lives, or we have these troubles in our lives, the best thing that we can do is embrace it. It's not to run from it. In fact, when we run from things and we don't embrace them, I'm convinced that God brings it back to us again, and we end up having to repeat that painful experience more than once. I don't know about you, but I don't want to repeat a painful experience again. Like, once I've gone through it, I want to learn what I need to learn from it, and then I want to move on.
Exactly.
And there might be new experiences that I have to go through, but hopefully they'll be different than the last one, right?
Yeah, no, I'm the exact same way. I feel you there. All right. Well, listen, Nate, thank you so much for coming on with us tonight. You're always welcome. You're a good friend. I'm thinking next time I would love to have you on, continuing to talk about your unique perspective as a DC insider, because we have great conversations, and, half the time I wish I was recording them every time we talk on the phone.
Right? One thing that we should do is we should do a show on surveillance.
Yes,
I've learned a whole lot about surveillance through this experience. Okay. But not just surveillance from the state. Okay, we've got a major issue going on in our country right now with surveillance from these big tech companies.
It's almost scarier.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing a story coming up here soon. With the Epoch Times about that. And so I've been meeting with some of the folks over there and talking to them. I did some forensics analysis on my phone and found, I had basically bits and pieces of audio that were being captured. So, something just to give you all terrible dreams.
If we're not paranoid enough.
Is that yes, the government can spy on you, but even if they don't have a FISA warrant, even if they don't, can't get to you through their means, who's to stop, Google or Facebook or Twitter from selling your information? Okay, I shared tonight that, Facebook admitted to me. They sent me a letter telling me that they basically gave the government full access to my account. I understand, that I'm sure came with a warrant, but what's to stop them from voluntarily giving that information?
Right.
Okay. So we have a real problem with privacy in our country. It's important. It's not just a matter of having a personal desire for privacy, but we actually have a constitutional right, to our Fourth Amendment. And so when law enforcement gets involved in getting information from us, it's a real problem when they don't go through a warrant process and that sort of thing. So, just something to keep in mind, guys. I am going to probably do something on that. I want to kind of try to start working on some things that are not, entirely tied to my whistleblowing. I actually have a life as a cybersecurity senior level cybersecurity engineer, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and I know a lot, and I have a lot of knowledge about those types of things, and I want to do some good with it. So maybe Red and I can do a topic on that one of these nights, and talk about cybersecurity, how to protect ourselves, what kind of surveillance tools, or what kind of anti-surveillance tools to put on our phones to protect ourselves. Maybe VPNs, different email accounts that I use, different apps that I use for protecting myself.
I think people be very interested.
Yep. I think that would be a good topic. So,
all right, excellent. Well, I also want to say thank you to everybody who's been in the audience tonight. Thank you so much to all of the viewers, my subscribers, everybody who liked and shared the video, everybody who signed up as a member, everyone who gave a super chat. I would not be able to be here if it was not for the support of viewers like you. Also, please do consider checking out Noble Gold with the Gold IRA. The link is in the description of this video. The information's free, and I actually rolled over my own IRA to a Noble Gold IRA because the money was just sitting there. But thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Nate, for being here once again. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.